sounds, and styles in person. Even if you're headed to the game last minute, Ticketmaster's got your back when it comes to scoring tickets. Get tickets at Ticketmaster.com/Warriors. See you courtside, Dub Nation.
Change is always happening. It's part of life. And when it comes to music, change is all around us. Songs are rewritten. Classics are remixed. Bands and artists come and go. Even our taste in music changes. Here at Xfinity, we know there's still good in keeping some things the same. That's why we want to do our part with a 5-year price guarantee on our internet. It means no matter what changes, you get 5 years of the most reliable Wi-Fi with our best equipment included for a price that stays exactly the same. Surprised? Life is full of them. One internet price, 5 years, guaranteed. Learn more at Xfinity.com/deals. Restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. Most reliable Wi-Fi based on OpenSignal Awards USA. Fixed Broadband Experience Report, August 2024.
Hey, it's Dan Dibley. You know what I love about heading to Chase Center? The energy, the excitement, and doing it all without sitting in traffic. That's why so many fans hop on Caltrain. It's the easy, stress-free way to get to the action. Instead of fighting for parking or staring at brake lights, you can relax, scroll your phone, grab a snack, or just kick back and enjoy the ride. Caltrain drops you right in San Francisco, steps away from great food, entertainment, and of course the big event at Chase Center. Skip the traffic, skip the parking. Take Caltrain. You'll ride to what matters.
This holiday season, a little care goes a long way for your community and for your Toyota. Bring an unwrapped toy to a participating Toyota service center and help a child in need through the California Highway Patrol's Toy Drive. Chips for kids. And as our way of saying thanks, enjoy $20 off your next Toyota service, now through December 10th. Give joy, get joy, and keep the season shining bright. Exclusively at participating Toyota service centers. Keep your Toyota a Toyota. Toyota and Scion owners only. Toy value must be at least $10. Some restrictions apply. See a participating dealer for details.
What's up, Dub Nation? Do you want to get cash back on Warriors gear? All you have to do is sign up at Rakuten.com/Warriors, where you can earn 10% cash back in store and online at Warriors Shop. Once you're a member, shop your favorite stores like Fanatics and Ticketmaster and watch the cash back add up in your account. Rakuten is the most rewarding way for you to shop and maximize your savings. Join Rakuten for free today at Rakuten.com/Warriors or download the Rakuten app. That's RAKUTEN.
Make pet care stress-free with PetMeds, the official partner of the Golden State Warriors. As a trusted national online pharmacy for over 29 years, PetMeds is licensed in all 50 states to support your pet's wellness. We offer a comprehensive range of health solutions for every stage of life, from prescription medications to nutrition and supplements. Visit PetMeds.com and use promo code WARRIORS for 30% off your entire order. PetMeds, empowering you to help your pets live longer, healthier lives.
Dub Nation, NBC Sports Bay Area is your home for complete Warriors coverage. Catch Steph and the squad all season long as Bob Fitzgerald and Kalina Azubuike call all the action. Tune in to Warriors pre- and post-game live, hosted by me, Bonte Hill, alongside NBA champ Festus Ezeli and Hall of Famer Chris Mullen. 1 hour before and immediately after every single game. Plus nonstop Warriors content with the NBC Sports Bay Area app. Authentic moments live here on NBC Sports Bay Area.
15 years ago, PG&E launched Power Pathway, an education and job training program developed to increase the number of skilled workers in the energy industry. Since then, 85% of the graduates have been hired by PG&E or the construction utility industry, focusing on students in underserved communities, women, and military veterans. Power Pathway is helping the next generation of PG&E energy professionals build a better future for themselves and a clean energy future for California. To learn more, visit pge.com/powerpathway.
Thanks for showing up, Dub Nation. Nothing beats catching your Warriors live, and nobody knows that better than you. So next time you want to hit up a game, Ticketmaster's got your back. As the official ticket marketplace of the Warriors and the NBA, even if you're headed to the game last minute, Ticketmaster gets you to the game so you can experience all the sights, sounds, and styles in person. Keep putting that jersey collection to use and get Warriors tickets today at Ticketmaster. Get tickets at Ticketmaster.com/Warriors. See you courtside again soon, Dub Nation.
Kia is the official automotive partner of the NBA. And we think about basketball a lot. The plays, the swagger, the glory, the game. And how we can elevate our own game with capability that takes us to another level. and ground clearance that propels us even higher. The 3-row 2025 Kia Telluride X-Line all-wheel drive. Kia, official vehicle partner of the Golden State Warriors. Call 800-333-4KIA for details. Always drive safely. Limited inventory available.
To Curry, pump fake, flyby, 3-ball. Got it with the buzzer sounding!
You've been listening to Golden State Warriors basketball on the Warriors Radio Network. Presented by United Airlines. For tickets, visit Warriors.com or call 888-GSW-HOOP.
You wish you were here.
This Odyssey Sports broadcast has been brought to you by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico.
No good. Rebound. Draymond throws it back to Curry. Quick release on the way. No splash. Rebound. Avdia. Ball game over. The Warriors road weary after a 6-game, 10-day trip. Come back to Chase Center less than 48 hours after they got off the plane. And they were a little sloppy at times tonight. And it cost them coming down the stretch. They lose 127-123. As the Portland Trailblazers get 4 players scoring 20 or more. 20 for Kamara, 22 for Klingon, 26 and 14 assists for Avdia, and a career-high 26 for Caleb Love, the rookie from Arizona. 38 for Steph Curry, 20 for Jimmy Butler, 20 for Brandon Podziemski. And the Warriors go back to 500. 9 wins, 9 losses.
Yeah, you heard Tim Roy, voice of the Golden State Warriors, a frustrating home loss. The first one of the season, by the way, for the Golden State Warriors as they fall to Portland for the second time this season. And tonight at Chase Center, the final score is 127-123. This is Warriors wrap-up here on 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings with you live at Chase Center, and the Warriors are back to 500. Seems like they turned a corner after Oklahoma City. Got a couple of nice wins against San Antonio, obviously picked up a stinker against New Orleans, and then they've kind of fallen flat on their face since. A team that is just really difficult to figure out who they are. I think that this was probably the worst loss of the season, a game that they should have won, honestly. And listening to players after the game, listening to Steve Kerr, we'll hear from both him as well as Steph Curry, a frustrated Stephen Curry in just a little bit. This was the game that they should have had. Portland stole this one on the road, and you got to give them credit. I mean, like you heard Tim Roy say, they had, 4 different players with 20-plus points. They had 5 different guys that had season highs tonight. And down Drew Holiday, down Shaedon Sharpe, a couple of other role players. They came into Chase Center and handed the Warriors kind of a sobering defeat. And they're back to 500. Won 3, lost 3. That's kind of been the story of this season, as they've yet to really figure out so far who they are and have a lot of people wondering, now 18 games in, if this is who they're going to be. You know, I was talking to one member of the media right after the game, and, they basically said this is what last year felt like before the trade. The difference is you made the trade. You have Jimmy Butler. And it feels like you're kind of back to where you were, struggling to figure out, are you a good team? Are you a bad team? Inconsistent teams, it's hard for me to label good, and that's exactly what the Warriors have been. They've been inconsistent. And they've been inconsistent specifically against teams like Portland. Teams with size, teams with length, teams with speed, teams with youth. You saw it against Orlando, and you saw it against another Trailblazers group tonight that basically, I thought just outworked the Warriors. You know, the Warriors scored enough points. They got 123 on the board. Certainly not bad. Not near the lowest output of their season. But they just got outworked, and it was all on the glass. They were out-rebounded 52-32. And this was a game that, again, the Warriors, it felt like they were in control after that second quarter. They put up 44 points. They're knocking down threes. They're having fun. Steph obviously made the final 5 of the quarter, so he went into the half feeling himself and put the Warriors up by 7 after they were down. Then in the third quarter, had a couple of early baskets. They got to the free throw line. Things were looking well, but they couldn't separate. And in my opinion, they couldn't separate it away from Portland because they couldn't get a rebound. They outshot Portland from the field, from the three-point line, and percentage-wise at the free throw line. I think they were -1 in terms of total points, but they gave up 21 offensive rebounds tonight. That led to 28 second chance points. That's the ball game. That's why they lost this game. And yes, it came down to a couple of big shots made by Caleb Love, of all people. And for those who are familiar with Caleb Love's collegiate career, he can do that. Now, I don't know if anybody pays attention to the Blazers because he also shot them out of a game 2 days ago, which is a very Caleb Love thing to do. He went 1 of 12 in their last game against Chicago. Tonight, he scores 26 points off the bench, hits 6 threes, including a couple of massive ones down the stretch. And that is what you leave yourself open to when you can't get rebounds, you can't get stops. And I think one of the big reasons they were able to get as many rebounds as they did, yes, they have far more size than the Warriors, but the Warriors' defense also is just simply not good enough. They couldn't stop the ball when they needed to. I mean, the majority of this game, Denny Avdija is a really good player, and I think many who are familiar with his game understand that he's capable of having a night like he did tonight where he scored 26 points, and more importantly, he had 14 assists. But he got to basically wherever he wanted on the floor. He also had 6 turnovers, had a couple of bad passes mixed in there, but I mean, he had 2 feet in the paint for what felt like the entire game. So did Caleb Love. So did, pretty much anybody who wanted to take a member of the Warriors off the dribble. And then once they were inside there, Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams III cleaned up just about everything. Combined between them, they had 13 of the 21 offensive rebounds, the Portland Centers did. They just inhaled rebounds tonight. Long rebounds, short rebounds, putbacks, cleanups. Everything was theirs off the glass. And Portland is a good rebounding team, but it highlights another weakness about this Warriors group. And I think that's what's kind of concerning to me at this point. And it's the fact that each and every night it feels like there's a different weakness that's being exploited. On the road it was, well, maybe their young guys aren't good enough. Tonight, not all of them were, but they had a couple of nice performances. Pods was not the greatest defensively, but he scored 20 points tonight. Was 8 of 10 at the free throw line. Quentin Post didn't give you much, but was at least a 7-footer out there, which you absolutely needed. I thought basically Pods was sort of the representative for their young group tonight. And other than that, it was up to the old guys again, who weren't good enough to sort of drag the other players to the finish line, similar to Orlando. But they didn't get hammered on the glass in Orlando the way they did tonight. They looked a little slow, but not like this. Against Miami, obviously, all the guys were missing. Against Oklahoma, they got overwhelmed. They turned over the basketball. And that was the other part about this game that was kind of frustrating is the big bugaboo for them during the road trip in their losses was turnovers. When they turned over the ball more than their opponents, they lost. Tonight, they took pretty good care of the ball. They had 14 turnovers. They were +7 in that column. They got 21 points off those 21 turnovers. So they didn't shoot themselves in the foot all that often. And they had a couple of bad ones, obviously, at inopportune times. But for the most part, I thought they took pretty good care of the ball. A game where Curry and Draymond obviously lead the way with 3 TOs, but Jimmy Butler did not have a single turnover tonight. Took really good care of the basketball. He had 3 against Orlando, and I think took that personally. But this was a game where it didn't matter how good of care you took care of the ball because they just got killed on the glass. They couldn't keep guys in front of them. And Portland looked quicker, younger, faster, stronger. And that, again, is a characteristic of teams that have hurt the Warriors. Again, I thought this was a game that Golden State would eventually find control in. And that's why it's a little frustrating to watch at this point what they were not able to do. But you look at some of these losses for the Warriors. Portland, the first time, they got ran out of the gym. Milwaukee, they got some young athletic players. Indiana aside, that's an outlier because that's a really bad team that you shouldn't lose to, although I guess you could say you got outworked in that game. Denver's really good. Oklahoma City's really good. You got pounded by both those teams. Orlando, and then now Portland. I thought San Antonio is a quick, young, athletic team. They managed to beat them, but obviously that was in large part because Steph Curry averaged 47.5 points per game in those two games. And if he had scored 47 tonight, they probably win. Curry was thought really good, obviously, in the first half. Maybe slowed down a hair in the second half, but hit a big three with 2 minutes left to cut the lead to 1. That was the closest it got. Portland, once they got the lead with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter with Curry off the floor, they just didn't give it back. And that's where I think it was Jimmy Butler I heard was talking after the game say, we just got to take defending more personally. Because they scored enough points to win this game. And I was listening to Steph after the game at his post-game presser, and he looked a little shell-shocked. To me, and 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap-Up. If we got some calls, Cam, please line them up. Would love to get people's reaction to this 127-123 loss tonight. But this was a game that I think sort of, I'm not going to say raised a red flag on the team because you're in game 18. A lot of these guys have been in seasons that have kind of been up and down. But I'll say, Curry, after the Oklahoma City game, his panic meter was a 4. Panic meter might be at a 5. Again, I think on Warriors this week, which will again be tomorrow from 9 to noon with myself and Dan Devone, we're talking about DEF CONs. The DEF CON, it's certainly not at 5, but you are, or maybe it's the other way around. Whichever it is, if you're at a 1, you're kind of moving towards 10 slowly. This is a game that you should have got. You got 38 points from Curry. I thought Jimmy played pretty well tonight. You even got 20 points off the bench from Pods. You just could not get a stop. The Warriors had 4 players in double digits, just like the Blazers. The difference is the Blazers' role players were better. And they hit enough shots and cleaned up enough of those loose balls to give them, God, they got 2 more threes up. They got 5 more total field goals up. They got 2 more free throws up. And in a game where you lose by 4, that ends up being the difference. I do want to talk about Curry in a moment, but I see we have a phone call on the line that I want to get to and kind of open things up with. 888-957-9570 is the number. Let's go to John, who's in Oakland. John, what's going on, man? Thanks for calling in. How you doing?
Great. I was at the game, and and it's very frustrating when you see that Kerr put in 4 guard lineups with Al Horford, and every time he did that in the game, he did it a couple of times, and both times they lost so much ground in terms of, and I don't understand, and you can go back to the other games that they've lost in the last couple of games, and very similar patterns. When he starts playing 4 guard, 3 guard lineups consistently, and Guy Santos nowhere to be, like some of the other guys that are bigs, Quentin Post, who did well in the second quarter, there's just so many things that, he didn't score that many, but you know what? He's +7 to your point. And that's what, and the moment he sat down, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is it. And there's the 4 guard lineup. We're done. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And I said, either 2 things are going to happen. We have a Curry flurry, and we win it with the Curry flurry. If not, this is a loss. And exactly what happened. And it's getting frustrating, to your point, again and again and again, 4 guard, 3 guard lineups against bigger teams, and it's not working. And I don't understand how a coach who's had so many years of experience with these kind of teams doing the same thing over and over again. I'm sorry. I'm really frustrated. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
No, I got you, John. Let it out, man. This is what it's for. I hope you had a good time at the game, though, otherwise, because, you saw Curry do his thing in the second half. It looked like the Warriors are going to make a run down the end there, but again, they could not get a stop and could not get a rebound. To your point about the size on this team, this is probably where, again, if you're looking at worst losses of the year, that to me is why it sort of is, because it's totally glaring that this team is just too small. And I find it interesting that last year, in the first round of the playoffs, yes, they did beat the Houston Rockets, but they got absolutely pounded by Steven Adams, Alperen Şengün, and a lot of other large, athletic, fast young players. And Houston dug in even deeper by acquiring Clint Capella. And their offense is really, really good. And one of the reasons is they have, I think it's a near 40% offensive rebound rate. It's one of the highest in recent memory. And I'm not saying the Warriors had to go out and find a trio of 7-footers. But if you're going to compete with the OKCs, who, by the way, have 2 7-footers, the Houstons, who now have 3, Denver's obviously got maybe the best one in the world. Al Horford may not be enough. And, oh, by the way, he left this game with a hamstring injury, and he's now day-to-day. But 35-year-old Al Horford might have been great. 32-year-old Al Horford would have been sensational. 39-year-old Al Horford is not looking like it's going to get it done. And as much as I think Quentin Post is a fine player, but if he's not hitting shots, I know he was a +7 tonight. I think a big part of that was that run that he and that second unit went on in the first quarter and second quarter when they got to the free throw line a bunch and really just slowed the game down to a crawl. But if he's not hitting shots, he's really hard to keep on the floor. Maybe he'll just have to be because he's 7 feet and can at least maybe grab a rebound. Trace Jackson Davis is not someone that I've really called for a whole lot this year. He might have helped tonight. I don't know. But I think that the Warriors' lack of attention to, and I've talked about this before, and I think I tweeted this out during the Orlando game, and I felt like it for a while. The center position, it just is a problem for the Warriors because right now their best center is Draymond Green. And when Draymond Green is your best center, your lineups, I don't care who else is around him, you're going to be small. Jimmy Butler at the 4 makes you small. Even if you don't have GP2 in and Will Richardson, who are both 6'3" on a good day. Even if you have a couple of other wings, insert Jonathan Kuminga, whoever else you want to put in there, you are going to be small and undersized if Draymond is at the 5. And if he's not surrounded by versatile defenders who can keep people in front of them, which they obviously could not tonight, then you're going to get exposed. Again, I think one of the reasons, yes, Donovan Clingan is one of the better young offensive rebounders and just rebounders in general in the league. And I said it during Warriors Live pregame. If there was a prop that I liked in this game, it was Clingan's over on rebounds. And I think it was 9.5, so he hit. I didn't see Robert Williams III coming because he had 11 in 20 minutes. He was just scooping up everything. And not only the offensive rebounds, too, but you're not getting second-chance opportunities because they're making you go basically 1 and out. Jimmy Butler was their best rebounder tonight. He had 6 offensive rebounds. And that's not a good sign when a small forward playing power forward is your best rebounder. And God love Draymond Green. A lot of the times he's just trying to find a body to hit, which is why he can't grab a rebound. Someone else has got to do it. But when the Portland Trailblazers were able to get into the paint at will, it just created a sense of what are we doing out there? What are we like? How are we going to stop these guys from climbing the ladder and basically doing whatever they want inside? So it was frustrating to watch Portland get rebound after rebound, extend possession after possession. There was a time in the fourth quarter where it felt like they didn't go, unless it was a turnover, one time down without having a second chance opportunity. And again, they were plus 18 on second chance points tonight. They were 8 of 15 from the floor on second chance points. Some of those were threes, some of those were putbacks. They also got to the free throw line. The Warriors, meanwhile, were 2 of 8 on second chance points. And that's just not going to be good enough. You know, they kept Portland, relatively speaking, out of transition. They were even, almost even as far as points in the paint tonight. But when the threes dried up for Golden State, and that's another part about their offense too that is a little concerning. When the threes dry up, which they did in the second half when they went 6 for 22, and I think Steph had half of them. When the threes dry up, it's really hard for this team to put together possessions. You know, I don't think offense was the biggest issue for me tonight, but that is one way to help your defense out is to score. And it feels like this team, as opposed to last year's group when they got Jimmy Butler, when they don't score, they really struggle to defend. Not just stopping the ball, not just, well, they also fouled a lot tonight too. Gosh, they had Portland in the bonus with like 6 minutes left in the opening period. That's one of the reasons why the Blazers got to the line 32 times. You know, and it's frustrating too because, so I was talking to someone at halftime on the Portland side. I used to work for their flagship radio station, so I went over at halftime to talk to a couple of my old buddies, and one of them goes, "Oh, don't worry, Blazers are going to fade." And I go, "Why do you think that?" And he said, "Well, they just can't score enough. You know, they just can't shoot." But he did tell me the one thing they don't do is stop working. And what's a bit of a problem right now for Golden State is it feels like you can outwork them on any given night. If you have the athletes for it, if you have the energy for it, whether you're old, young, whatever, like you can outwork Golden State. And that was frustrating. I know this was the first game back of a road trip, and a lot of people like to say there's, you know, a little bit of a malaise, of course, coming off a 6-game roadie. But I thought the Warriors shook off the rust, I would say, after like 6 or 7 minutes. You know, they kind of slept-walked a bit through the first, their starters through the first stint. But then I thought they shook off the rust in the second quarter and into the second half. But by then, Portland basically just kept their foot on the gas pedal. And it's what makes a lot of people feel like this Warriors team is just simply too old a lot of times, because they're not able to turn it on when they need to, and they can't prevent teams like Portland from smelling blood in the water. You know, the Blazers had lost 6 of the last 7 games, and a lot of it was because Drew Holiday's out, who's helped them a bunch. You saw that the first time they played them all the way back at the end of October. But he's kind of the guy that keeps them in line. You know, now they just turned the ball over to Avdija. He ran point a lot of possessions tonight. And again, just basically put 2 feet in the paint, dished it out, had 14 assists. That is, like, I talked about it before the game, that I thought that Avdija would be more of a passer than a scorer tonight for the Blazers, which is why his under also hit. But 14 assists, like they had 32 assists as a team, Portland did, on 42 shots. That means that they are getting past your point of attack defender, just point blank. If a team is connecting on 32 assists of 42 shots, it means they're getting past their man, the ball is going to where it needs, and there's a lot more openings than you would like as a defense. I mean, there was a time, I think it was in the second quarter, where they had 3 straight lobs. I mean, Avdija, twice down, threw a couple, one actually clinging through a lob to Avdija, but the dunker spot was available. It felt like every time they wanted him to in the second quarter. 2 turned into dunks, 1 turned into free throws, and they just ran the same play 3 times down. That's where I understand Jimmy Butler. It's like you got to take a little bit of pride in your defense. And the Warriors right now, especially tonight, they didn't defend with much pride. And I love the growth that we've seen from someone like Moses Moody, but he did not have a good game tonight. I mean, it is his job to be the best perimeter defender on this team, the best point of attack defender. He was a minus 15. I mean, I thought Avdija, along with Caleb Love at times, I mean, they kind of cooked him. You know, I think Moses will have better games, and maybe tonight was just a one-off, but he got himself played off the floor. Like, there's a reason why he didn't close this game, because he just was simply not very good. I think that Moses overall is a good defender, but he did not have a game tonight. He just didn't. Portland got to wherever they wanted to. And I mean, as a whole, it's not his fault specifically, but the Warriors have, I think, two quality defenders in their starting lineup: Draymond Green and Moses Moody. And Draymond anchors the back line. Moses Moody's supposed to stop ball. Butler's not that guy anymore. As much as I think he's a smart defender, I don't think Will Richard is particularly great at stopping the ball. And then Steph is Steph. That's not his job. Gary Payton is not that guy anymore. He made a couple of nice plays tonight, and I don't like that he has to play 17 minutes, but without Kuminga, maybe they needed him to. Pods is certainly not a great point of attack defender whatsoever, and even though I think he's a good help defender, he ain't stopping the ball. You just look up and down. Buddy Hield, no, works hard, can't do it. Post, if he gets dragged out in a pick and roll, he's in trouble. Like right now, I was talking to our producer Cameron Williams, who runs all of our Warriors stuff here. He was like, "What do you think the biggest position of need is for Golden State?" I said, probably, you could look at the center position and say they're in trouble there, especially if someone like Horford is hurt. But they also need I think another wing who can pick up a guy. Like their defense, they gave up 127 points tonight. That's just not going to get it done. All right, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap Up. We're going to take a break here, come back, play Steve Kerr along with, I think the sound you want to hear is Steph Curry, because I really want to dig into what the chef was sort of sounding like tonight. That might have been the most alarming thing for me. So I'm going to play that for you in its entirety on the other side. Warriors lose tonight to the Blazers, 127-123. If you have calls again, 888-957-9570 on the other side. Evan Giddings with you live at Chase Center. We'll be back after this.
Jimmy Butler will advance. Left wing with the dribble. Calls over Draymond. Goes away from the screen. Now dribbles it back out. Warriors not sure what they want to do. Bad pass. Draymond gets the deflection. Finds Curry. 7 on the clock. Got to make something happen here. Curry on Kamara. Backs him up. Takes the 3 off the dribble. And he nails it right in front of the Portland bench. It's a 1-point game. Inside of 2 minutes to go. Blazers on top.
Now back to Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
Yeah, a late Curry flurry, not enough for Golden State as they fall to the Portland Trailblazers tonight, 127-123. I mean, this was a game that felt like the Warriors played well enough to win. They just got absolutely hammered on the glass. They could not stop the Blazers when they needed to get a stop. And you got to credit Portland. They hit some big shots down the stretch there, and the Warriors just did not have enough. I mean, this game was in the balance for the better part of, I would say, 8 minutes in the fourth quarter. You know, Tumani Kamara, hit a three-pointer with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter to give Portland its first lead since, about, I think, midway through the second, 101 to 100. And I wrote this down immediately because it was apparent to everybody who watched this game. I don't care if you were a Blazer fan, you're a Warriors fan, whatever. I wrote this down. All the size for Portland is frustrating Golden State. They're getting to loose balls, offensive rebounds, and right as I finish writing that, I look up, and Caleb Love hits a big 3 late in the shot clock off of a Denny Avdija drive that, again, they couldn't stop the ball. Makes it 107-102, and that's where the crowd just kind of begun to simmer a little bit. Like, it wasn't a live crowd. I know we had the cup courts, which I actually thought were pretty cool. The Warriors black jerseys. I thought the gray courts were pretty slick, especially when you compare them to. I'm not a huge fan of the Houston all red. Certainly not a fan of the Minnesota lime green or whatever they want to call that Lake Placid looking piece of junk. But I thought the Warriors court looked pretty cool. But there wasn't a lot of energy after Portland continued to hit shot after shot. They go up 7 points with 8 minutes left. And then the Warriors, again, kind of cut into the Blazers' lead, but they never could hit a big shot. Like, with 6:22, this was a kind of a big possession for me. Avdija takes a bad step back, misses a 3, so they kind of dodge a bullet there in that possession. And then Quentin Post from the corner, and then he sidesteps a Robert Williams contest from the wing, misses back-to-back open 3s. Which leads into a Williams dunk off a Caleb Love drive where they didn't stop the ball in transition. So it goes from that point, it was 109-105, could have been 109-108, could have cut it to 1 there, but instead it's quickly the other way, and Portland gets 2 points. Like, that's just how every possession sort of felt in that fourth quarter with the game in the balance, that the Warriors had a chance to kind of make a play, and every time they either couldn't get a rebound or missed a shot, or made some mistake, potentially a turnover, Portland made him pay for it. I thought that Curry did everything he could. Jimmy tried as well. Obviously Curry missed a couple of those late 3s, and I think he was so frustrated because of that he just went beelined it to the locker room after the game. I don't know if it was visible on the telecast, but everyone else kind of is clapping hands. Draymond's talking to the other team. Jimmy's saying good job. Camaraderie and sportsmanship and all that. The Curry just went straight to the locker room. Like, he was pissed after this game. We're going to hear from him in just a moment. I don't think we have any calls. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap-Up here after this one. I think there's a lot of things to kind of look at this game and say, wow, the Warriors, they got some work to do. And I know we also have some Jimmy Butler sound as well, but Cam, if we can, I want to go in chronological order. So I was thinking Kerr first, but this is who spoke first after the game. I talked about this last time they were at home, but typically Curry goes last, or has in previous years for his post-game pressers. He's gone first this year. So in my opinion, you're getting more of a freshly emotional, right after the game, in the jersey, hasn't showered, the emotions that he felt running to the locker room quickly after missing that late 3, which wouldn't have tied the game. It would have cut it to 1. No promise they win that game. But the frustration I thought was a little palpable at the podium. So here's Steph Curry in his entirety.
What's most disappointing about a game like tonight?
I feel like you played well enough to win, but had nothing to show for it, and just some untimely defensive breakdowns that led to some open threes down the stretch. Early in the game couldn't get a rebound. Just defensively, we didn't, together as a unit, didn't do enough to give ourselves a chance down the stretch.
How do you win a game when you're minus 20 in rebound? What does it take to overcome that?
Pretty much perfect basketball on the other end, but it's still crazy that we were a one-possession game with, whatever it was, a minute and a half with that type of discrepancy. It's like you can play as hard as you want to, fly around, but the best offense and the most demoralizing thing for a defense is, 20 seconds of good defense and then an easy putback or, second, third opportunity. So we know we're small out there at times, but we got to play bigger than we are. There were a lot of breakdowns on just box outs because they had 5 out most of the time with a 7-footer in there, and those possessions matter.
Steph, why do you think the defensive consistency has been so hard to stick with this year?
I don't know. I think we've had, some bright spots, some games that we've shown we could do it for 48 minutes, and we've had some duds. Even tonight we had ebbs and flows. Whatever the answer is, it's a reminder that you have to, fly around, be on a string, not have mental errors where you're letting guys get to their strong hands and, game plan discipline type stuff. And I think we've struggled with that part, especially tonight, letting guys just drive right down the paint, and then we have to put pressure on our bigs to figure out if they're going to, guard the rim or guard the ball. Like stuff like that over the course of a game, you start chasing a little bit.
Steph, how frustrating is it when you guys are up by 11 and then the turnovers start happening, the isolated shots start happening, the ball movement doesn't keep going, and then it allows them to get back in the game like that?
Yeah, like I said, we felt like, I felt like we did enough, to win in that middle or beginning to the middle of the fourth. It started to kind of unravel a little bit, but there are clearly things that we can do better as a team to, maintain that level that we have for certain parts of the game. That I think a lot of that is just mindfulness, no matter who's out there. Again, being in the right spots defensively, understanding what their tendencies are, and just trying to play a little bit smarter on both ends of the floor, especially defensively.
You guys are going to get an off day and 2 practices in the next 4 days. Like how necessary and needed right now is like practice and rest, I guess.
Practice helps for sure. We got to be able to sit and watch film, then go out and drill some stuff. It's not like you'll be out there playing 5-on-5, but the difference between the mental work that you do on a daily and the physical of going through reps, some of the teaching points, being able to see how the adjustments can help us be in better position when it comes to game time. Certain lineups out there that we have that we know are going to be on the floor for certain stretches, getting those guys together to get comfortable and get a better chemistry, understanding what we're doing. So it'll help for sure, but it's all good until you got to go out and do it on the court, and we'll see how we respond.
Steph, a more lighthearted one for you, but everybody's on sneaker watch now for you. Are you sending little sneakerhead messages with what you're wearing? How much have you enjoyed kind of showcasing what you have in your closet?
I'm just having fun. I'm enjoying, like you said, paying tribute to certain guys, different cities, different themes, and all of that. Like I said, I'm excited about the future. It's the first time I've worn something other than my own shoes, but I still love my shoes too.
All right. Well, that was Steph Curry after the 127-123 loss. Yeah, sorry, that last question kind of killed me a little bit. But I think I heard a Steph who he's not at wit's end yet. It's game 18. He's been around the block enough. But that's a Steph Curry that knows that there's some things that they're just going to struggle with night in and night out. And it's not, I don't think it's the games where, like, if he goes crazy and they lose, but the rest of the team didn't play well, I don't think those games really bother him. And even if he doesn't play well, and they win, he's not bothered by. You'll see Steph kind of frustrated when he feels like his group should have won the game. Like, they played well enough to win. And that's what he said. And that's why after he got off the podium, you could hear it. He let out a frustrated yell. I think that's why he was the first one off the floor after the loss. Like, that loss kind of stung him. And it was the worst loss of the season so far. Hopefully, well, I'm sure there'll be worse losses. And I'm sure they're going to bounce back and they'll get some wins. Like, they got some beatable opponents coming up on the schedule. But you would have hoped that they could start the homestand the right way and kind of wipe this taste out of their mouths off of a skidding halt to what looked like it was going to be a promising road trip. A really tough road trip, by the way. So, have they turned the corner yet? Obviously not. Do they know who they are? Obviously not. But again, when I was talking about off the top here that someone told me that it felt a little bit like last year in November, when they started out 12-4 and then eventually over the next 16 games finished 4-12. They were back to 500. We're not quite there yet because that was further along in the season. But I remember in a lot of those post-game pressers, not just Curry, but other guys on the team, they're just kind of searching for answers. Like, they're wondering what went wrong in a game night to night and what is the common thread. That's the issue with a lot of inconsistent teams. It's not just one thing. It's a lot of things. And that's when it becomes hard to fix. So that's what I'm hearing beginning to creep into some of these sound bites from Steph, is that it's not just one thing. Like he said, we know we're small, we got to play bigger. Okay, well, is the answer just to play Post more? Is to play Horford more? Is to play TJD more? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure the answers to these questions are on the roster. And that's where it becomes frustrating. And I think when you watch them sometimes, they look a little bit powerless because the wins and the results aren't necessarily predicated on what they're doing. It's on what other teams are doing. Like tonight, if Portland had a worse shooting game, the Warriors could have won this game. If Caleb Love missed some shots, if Denny Avdia had a couple more turnovers, they could have won this game. Maybe that challenge on Jimmy Butler goes a different. Like there's a lot of things that they don't have control over, and that's to me the issue right now with Golden State is they're going to be in a lot of these games, and some of the plays and calls will go their way. But I do wonder if they're beginning to feel a little bit like they're not in control. And I'm sure that's got to be frustrating considering the majority of this group was also on last year's team where the last 31 games of the season and into the postseason, they were in control a lot of the time. And they found ways to win without Horford, without playing really with a 7-footer. And they beat other teams with 7-footers. But this is a different year, and it's early in the season when the stakes aren't as high. And they're still trying to find, I think, their footing, which clearly is different than what they had at the beginning of last year when they were all over the place. But I am not so sure they don't believe that there are more than just tweaks that are needed to be made now, to be made right now, and that's sort of what I'm hearing from Steph Curry. All right, let's go to Ben, who's in San Francisco. This is Warriors Wrap-Up with Evan Giddings. Just heard from Steph. We're going to hear from Steve Kerr in just a moment, but let's go to Ben in San Francisco. What's up, Ben?
Hey, thanks for having me. Love the show. I think you said it all. I think Curry said it all. I got to be at the game, and watching him play is always special, but I do feel that frustration. I'm not so much worried about some of the lineups, because I feel like, unfortunately, they've already tried some of the double big lineups. Like they have played Horford with post or Horford with TJD. I don't know where on the roster right now you can go to for more size that won't compromise something else. So as a fan kind of on the outside looking in, I mean, I still have to hear more of your thoughts. Like, where can they get more defensive effort from? Because I think that's the only thing that's going to help them on the offensive end when they can't deal with some of these teams like Portland or like an OKC or just that athleticism. I don't know when Kuminga's going to come back. I don't know that solves everything. I hope it'll help. But it is frustrating kind of feeling like maybe they've already looked at some of the options this year and last year, and they're kind of running on this treadmill. And when is that development for some of the younger guys, or are you going to rely on the vets to pick up all the remaining slack? Is that what we have to wait for? I mean, again, I just want to enjoy these last few years of Steph playing, but where are these answers going to come from? Again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, Ben. No, a lot of good stuff there. Yeah, I think, well, where are they going to come from? Right now it's got to be internally. I mean, as much as it's frustrating to watch this group, they can't do anything until January 15th. You know, I've always thought that coming into the season that a trade was going to not just be necessary if they wanted to, well, I thought originally get into a different category, but it feels like just keep this team afloat, floating upstream. But it's got to be internal. You know, I think Kuminga will help because he is right now what they seem to lack, which is athlete. They don't have a lot of them. But I don't think he's the answer. I don't think that he's going to come in and solve everything. But I will say this, that like clearly this team has had the ability to play at a high enough level that they, again, it's out of the gate, but they won 4 of their first 5 games, and they beat some decent teams. They just won 3 games in a row, and 2 of which were against the Spurs. You know, some of that is obviously Curry going nuclear, but they also handled a Suns team at home that appears to be pretty decent. They just stole one against Minnesota, by the way, and they're 4 games above 500 right now, the Phoenix Suns. So, you know, they've shown that there are times in which they look like a formidable group, but the question is, can they find consistency? And that to me is where I'm hearing Curry beginning to have some doubts. Like, he knows that they can do it. They're clearly not a bad team. But how often they can summon it. Not just the young guys, I think also the old guys too. You know, again, this is a night where maybe 5 years ago, Curry does go for 46. You know, that's a lot to ask, obviously, but maybe he knows that he needed to do a little more tonight. And he couldn't get there. Maybe he feels like Draymond or Jimmy needed to do a little bit more tonight, and they couldn't get there. I don't think it's fair to place the blame completely at the feet of the guys around them. I don't think they would do that. But this team is obviously missing something, and tonight it was size. I think against Orlando it was ball control, which, by the way, Curry was a part of because he had 5 turnovers in the game. Tonight was the first night where they lost a game where they had fewer turnovers than their opponent. You know, it's been something a little bit different each night. Just like in their wins, they've kind of cobbled them together different ways. So it's really tough for me to say what exactly they're missing because, yeah, they miss young, athletic players. But that's not the way this roster was built. And maybe that's going to be their downfall in the end because they believed enough in the end of last year's group to double down on it. And to be fair, they didn't invest a ton in it. I mean, all they did was re-sign Kuminga, bring in Horford, and obviously last year trade for Jimmy Butler, but they didn't give up more than the first-round pick that they didn't have this season. So they got their coffers full. If they wanted, they can go out and make a move. You know, the question is, do they think that there's a piece out there that can wholesale catapult this team back to the kind of contention where it was last year? Or do they believe that this team internally can get there? I'm starting to think that this team is having some doubts about that. All right, let's go to Steve Kerr, the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, obviously after this one. 127-123, let's hear what the head coach had to say.
Quick one before talking about the rebound discrepancy. I didn't even see Al Horford on the bench in the fourth, and I know you didn't go to him. Was he unavailable?
He was unavailable. I don't know exactly what happened, but Yoder came to me late third and said Al was out. So I haven't. I'm not sure what it is.
And kind of to that point, they had 21 offensive rebounds. Is that the game?
Yeah, that's the game. A lot of them turned into threes. A couple of Caleb Love's threes were off offensive boards. 28-10 second chance points. So that's the game. They're an athletic team, even missing a couple of their guys. They're super athletic. They crash, put a lot of pressure on us, and that was the difference.
Steve, how do you overcome a size deficit like that? Steph said you guys have to play bigger than you are, but as a team, when you're facing a lineup with like 4 6'8" players, how do you overcome that?
Well, you overcome it with execution and hitting bodies, rebounding wise, and we tried to play big more in the second half. Obviously, we started Quentin for Will, and then we played Trace some. So we tried to just keep our bigger guys out there. But give them credit. They played a great second half.
Steve, you mentioned their athleticism and the size advantage that they had. So was there a point maybe putting in Trace Jackson Davis earlier in the game to kind of match that athleticism and grab some rebounds? Because the second chance points, I believe, was 28-10, which, as you kind of mentioned too, that was the game right there. So is there something that Trace Jackson Davis isn't doing to get more minutes when there's a big size advantage like that?
It's definitely an option, yeah.
Steve, why do you think the defensive consistency hasn't been the way you guys want it so far this year?
I think overall our defense has been pretty good, actually. Tonight what hurt us really was the second chance stuff. I thought Avia was fantastic. I mean, just getting downhill early in the game, he found Klingon for a couple of lobs, and that's where we decided we've got to get bigger out there, and started going to the two bigs with Al and Quentin and Draymond, and then eventually Trace as well. I think we're going to be just fine defensively. I'm not worried about our defense. I'm more worried about our offense right now. Not a whole lot of rhythm, not a lot of flow. So this week will be really good for us to get some practice time. Starting Sunday, tomorrow will be off, and we'll get some work in Sunday, and a couple more practices during the week. So it should be a good week for us.
What do you think you need to do to unlock stuff
To
unlock everything?
Well, I thought we found a good flow, on the road trip. Both games in San Antonio, even the Orlando game, I thought we played pretty well. But the turnovers hurt us. Tonight, ironically, it was not the turnovers. We did a decent job taking care of the ball. So we've got to find a little better rhythm and find some actions that can give us some, get other people involved besides Steph and Jimmy, and, try to get other people going as well.
With what Portland did on the offensive glass tonight, and then also think about some of the other teams in the West, like Houston, Oklahoma City can play double bigs. How big of a concern is defensive rebounding?
It's a concern. I mean, we have been playing relatively small lineups with Draymond at the 5. We can, we'll think about going back to Quentin to get more size out there. That's definitely a possibility. So we'll just have to, get a good gauge on our team here this coming week, and watch the film and see if that's something we want to do.
Steve, there's been times in the past when you guys were also smallish, but you were top 5 sometimes in rebounding. 22nd right now. How hard is it to get back to where you want to be with the roster you have?
I think we can get back there, but we may have to, shift the combinations a little bit and play bigger more often, play two bigs more often, somebody with Dre, whether it's Al or QP or Trace. So we have to look at that for sure.
Hey, Steve,
off topic. Today was the 50th celebration of the 1975 NBA championship for the Warriors. Is there anything you have in memory of that championship, watching as a kid, maybe?
I do remember watching the game and seeing the celebration. I was 9 years old, I think, at the time. So not vivid memories, but I remember seeing the celebration when they sealed it in Washington, and got to know those guys a little bit over the years. Always fun to see them and welcome them back to the Bay. Thank you.
Yep, Steve Kerr after this one, a lot to get into, obviously finishing up with the 1975 team. Sorry, I chuckled a little bit there during the question, just basically asked him how old he was. But a lot to kind of unpack there. We're going to do even more of it tomorrow during Warriors This Week with my guy Dan Devone from 9 to noon, so looking forward to that. Just a couple of final thoughts on this one. I think that this was a game that it's hard to not doubt the roster right now because it's composed of primarily players who play around and don't always have, I think, a lot of forceful impact outside of Curry and Jimmy. On a night like tonight, I don't think those guys were necessarily the problem, but they needed to be better. And because the guys around them just aren't right there. They weren't good enough right now. They weren't good enough tonight to beat Portland. Like it's kind of hard for me to pinpoint one thing because you think about the road trip and a lot of their losses early this year, it's because they were careless with the ball. They were loose with the ball. Tonight, they weren't. They were tight. And they still lost because they got absolutely pounded by a team that's more athletic, that was faster than them, and just simply outworked them. And defensively, I think that Kerr is somewhat correct that they haven't been bad defensively, but tonight they were. Tonight it felt like Portland got 2 feet in the paint pretty much every time they wanted to. Avdija penetrated with ease. A quick guard like Caleb Love, who scored a season-high 26, was able to blow by his man. And once everything collapsed, it was just a scrum. And the Trailblazers' bigs, their wings, even someone like Kamara who had 5 offensive rebounds, those guys just got to the ball quicker than the Dubs. They were discombobulated when it came to grabbing defensive rebounds. And it's something that has happened all season long. I think that they've just been able to overcome it by outshooting their opponents and getting enough stops by forcing some turnovers. But they didn't do that tonight. And anytime you're giving up 20 rebounds, which is like a ghastly amount, you're going to be in trouble. So, I think there's certainly some things to monitor from this game, some things to kind of look at. I think what's going to stick with me the most about this game is listening to Steph after it sort of struggle to figure out how they lost this game. And on paper, you could say it's easy, right? They gave up 21 offensive rebounds. They were minus 18 in second chance points, and Portland cleaned up a lot of stuff. But I think Curry is looking at the point of attack defense in this game. I think he's looking at the lack of size sometimes in this roster, the inability when he either isn't on the floor sometimes or doesn't have it going to generate consistent offense. And it doesn't mean that all of these things together mean that the Warriors are a bad team. But on a game like tonight where you had control of the game, probably should have been able to put Portland away considering they were missing 2 starters and a couple role players and had to rely on guys stepping up who generally don't. That is where doubt begins to creep in. And so, again, I don't think the panic meter is necessarily higher than it was in Oklahoma City, but it definitely didn't go down after this game. The panic meter from the beginning of the road trip to the end of the road trip, if it was at a 4, it's not a 3. I don't know if it's a 5 or a 6 for him, but it definitely has not been calmed. And that is a little concerning because the Warriors are 500 again, and they're back on a 3-game skid. And they got some time to correct things, but they got to figure out how to do the best with what they have. And that's a small, on most nights, against a team like Portland, certainly, less athletic team, even when Kuminga is back, than their opponents. They figured out how to make it work last year for them because they won a bunch of games down the stretch and got to the second round of the postseason with a chance to get to the Western Conference Finals. But this is a different year, and they're going to have to figure out how to do some different things. So they got some questions to answer, and hopefully we can solve them a little bit more tomorrow on Warriors this week, and obviously moving forward because they got 2 days off between now and when they play the Utah Jazz on Monday. So a lot going on 95.7 The Game. Obviously we'll be back tomorrow morning on Warriors This Week. Nothing on Sunday, actually. Got a clean Sabbath off because the Niners play on Monday, as do the Warriors. So looking forward to all of that. But in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us here tonight. Big thank you, as always, to Cameron Williams, holding it down for us in our Laughing Monk studios, our Warriors Network coordinator. Big thank you to all of our sound editors, whether it's Steven Risotto, Ken Luttrell, everyone back there helping out. We appreciate you. Thank you to everybody who called in tonight as well. Thank you to our YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. My name is Evan Giddings saying so long from Chase Center, where the Warriors fall one last time, 127-123 to the Portland Trailblazers. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning for Warriors This Week, all right here on your home for Golden State Warriors basketball, 95.7 The Game.
Walking into the building for the first time after the shooting, it was crippling, but it had to be preserved.
In response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that affected the LGBTQ community, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse, founded the